tired, so tired. Overtired.
Hello, ear holes across America and the world. This is the Overtired podcast. I'm Jeff Severance Gunsel, and I'm here with my co-hosts Christina Warren and Brett Terpstra, and we're all back together. This is the reunion show. It's really great. Like most band reunions, I've gained a little weight. My face is a little bigger. But here I am. Let's go.
Have you seen do you follow the circle jerks on Instagram? Just out of curiosity.
No, I was never a fan.
Okay.
I don't want to make you mad. I don't want to make you mad.
No, they're so old and they're still doing it.
Yeah, I don't even know who the circle jerks are.
Really?
No, I have no idea.
Live fast, die young. This is no.
I know well who the circle jerks are. I have never gone through a whole album.
Old punk rock.
Okay. I mean, I probably if I heard some stuff, I probably would be familiar because like the punk rock of my generation, which is like like pop punk.
Yeah, I don't think they
yeah.
ever had a chart topper of any kind.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like that stuff like becomes interpolated and inspired and whatnot. But yeah, no, I nope.
So Jeff,
when it comes to, let me just say this: when it comes to the classic punk rock, I've always had this sort of attitude. This is true of hardcore too, where I kind of reach back and I pick one or I pick two. So I've got Black Flag, right? And
yep.
and I come forward with them. When it came to hardcore, I had Bad Brains, and I kind of moved forward in life with them, but I never really spread out in hardcore or in that early, especially West Coast punk
Who's
rock.
your Black Flag frontman of choice?
I don't know. I'll take Henry Rollins. I like them all. Yeah, I just enjoyed it all.
Same.
Yeah.
Like I used to be like, oh, Chavo or bust, and now, man, Henry Rollins, he was Black Flag. You can't deny Black Flag with Henry Rollins. It was weird. Like pictures of him all like muscled out and like squat kneeling on the it was like a little aggressive. Like there was the thing about Black Flag, and especially with him, was like there was definitely too much testosterone, but it was a learning band for me. It was a band that was a link in the chain and helped me understand how we got from one place to another. So that's how I think of them. Yeah.
Anyway,
so you got the COVID, Jeff.
I got the COVID. Yeah, I happened to get COVID a few days before my family was supposed to leave for a meticulously planned trip to Kenya to visit a good friend of mine who has an organic farm there, and then to also go to the coast of Kenya. We had been planning that one for quite a while, and it was a huge disappointment. And I had not gotten COVID yet, so this is my first COVID, and I got it just in time to cancel like a really, really special trip. And because we booked a lot of that trip with points, and because the way airlines are, like, whereas we had paid about $600 a person for our tickets that we were going to use to go, to rebook, tickets ranged from $2,000 to $9,000 per person.
Fuck.
And this just wasn't going to work out. And so, and I got really sick for a few days. Like, I didn't have the kind of like, it's just like having a head cold. Like, I had a few days of just rolling around being like, make it end. And then a few more days of just really intense fatigue and just feeling really, really out of it. My wife and I were both kind of relieved when on the day we should have been flying out, I felt really terrible, because it just would have been hard if it was if I was having like COVID light and I was just like, I'm fine, and we know that our plane is 100%, leaving.
100%. No, you need it to be all in. Were you able to get like at least refunded your points and stuff, or? Yeah,
everything was refunded. No problem with that. Thank God. And we were able to kind of pull ourselves together and actually like improvise a really fun family road trip out west, where the kind of main anchor was Yellowstone, but really it was about just being in Wyoming, which my family had never been. I love Wyoming. And I love it way more than South Dakota, which neighbors it. Minnesota has South Dakota on one side and Wisconsin on the other. And those are both states that just feel this it's like they have some kind of complex to announce their politics above all else. And when you're in Wyoming, man, we drove around Wyoming for 3 or 4 days. I saw one Trump flag, but there's a lot of Trump supporters there.
Oh yeah, the whole state's
yeah.
like Trump supporters. It's just there are like 5 people who live. I was gonna say it's like Montana's the same way.
Yeah,
like there are like 10 people in each state, yet they each get electoral college votes.
Regardless, representation. Yeah,
I told the boys when we were rolling into Wyoming, I'm like, here's the deal with Wyoming. It's like 2,000 people, 5,000 horses, and, maybe 20,000 guns. And, other than that, but I love Wyoming. I really do. It honestly feels like the West. It feels like the mythical West. And that's not all good, of course, right?
Sure. But no, it's like, yeah.
It's like going to another country certainly for a Midwesterner and certainly for Midwestern teenage boys, So it was super cool. We pulled that together and just kind of improvised it along the way because there had been a lot of flooding and the park had only just opened. Yellowstone was actually pretty dead. And so we didn't have the experience of massive car lines and whatever else. And very importantly, there is something that my family refers to as the Gunsel, South Dakota curse. My father, in trying to take us on trips over the years, had a lot of mishaps. The one that I most remember was being in South Dakota. I think we were headed for Yellowstone, which I've never been to because of this, if that's the case. And all of our luggage was stolen by a motorcycle gang.
Oh my God.
And this was back in the day when families were traveling with cash, right? Or maybe checks, but mostly cash. And so and they're public school teachers. So we didn't have a lot of money. So we had to go to JCPenney and buy the cheapest shirts and shorts we could find. And I ended up with a wardrobe of clearance rack South Dakota shirts that I had to wear the rest of the trip. And then eventually the luggage was found and actually mailed back to my father with maggots in it and everything. I mean, all kinds of weird bugs. And for some reason, the sheriff was like, here you go. There's nothing in it. He's like, we found it. Wanted to give it back to you. So anyhow, we broke the South Dakota curse, except for one thing, which is just a very quick one thing. So I got the whole front end of my minivan fixed before we left for the trip. We picked it up and left for the trip, right? And about 2 hours into our trip, our left front wheel starts rattling really intensely. We pull over to sleep for the night so we can call a mechanic in the morning. My mechanic says, "Oh, I don't think that's a problem. You can keep going, but if you feel like it's grave danger, bring it in." And so there happened to be a mechanic next to our hotel. I brought it in, and it turns out 2 of the bolts holding the caliper, an important part of my brakes, to my wheel, had just fallen out on the trip. And we were in a situation where, had we not pulled over, it would have seized our wheel. And if we were on the highway, we could have just flipped, and it would have been this just totally horrible accident. But the key is, this was before we got into South Dakota, so the Gunsel curse didn't count. So we got it in time, we got it fixed, and everything was beautiful from them. But that was chilling. And I just want to say to people, if your mechanic says that bump is not a big deal, here's why, don't listen.
Yeah, he's just being a lazy ass. Holy shit. You could have
He was shook. When I told him what it was, he was shook. He was like, that's really bad. And I was
because that's his fault. That's 100%
killed my
his
family
fault.
bad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's him being fucking lazy and not bolting the shit down.
Or someone in the shop. Yeah.
And then being doubly lazy and being like, yeah, I don't want to check this out. It's fine.
Right.
Honestly, you need a new mechanic.
I've never had a mechanic, which this guy in St. James, Minnesota did when he saw what was wrong. I've never had a mechanic say, you're going to want to come out here and take a picture. Just to you want evidence that these bolts were missing.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm just saying so thanks to the St. James guy who thankfully you're not in South Dakota. Yeah. And also listening to these stories, are you sure your dad wasn't like John Hughes? I know his stuff was the Chicagoland area, but are you sure? Because this sounds like vacation stuff, National Lampoon's Vacation stuff, the motorcycle gang stealing the luggage, almost having the car literally fall apart because the brakes aren't attached. This is genuinely National Lampoon stuff.
It is amazing. But we beat it.
Without violating any medical privacy for anyone, do you know how you got coronavirus?
Frankly, and I'm really embarrassed to say this, that like, I mean, I also understand how it happened, and I'm not super embarrassed. We just like completely let our defenses down.
Yeah.
And even, and like that could have been, it's one thing if we weren't going on a vacation, but the fact that we were going on a vacation should have meant that we were masked everywhere, in my opinion, like in what happened with us. And in one very specific case, I went to a place that I know well. They were helping my son work on his vintage gaming PC. And we all can appreciate this. It was how to load like an audio driver on Windows 95 nice. So he can get the full sound from Doom. And this is a place that's really basically empty. It's like a really cool little space where they call it a retro tech thrift store. It's called Free Geek in Twin Cities. And it's basically empty. In the past, people were always wearing masks. And I know there are people that'll listen to this and like be banging their head against the whatever device is playing this podcast. But like I was comfortable there, and I felt like it had always been a place I was comfortable. People were always wearing masks, and we were at a point here where everything was so low. We had not started to have this current spike that we have. I think actually I was on the front end of that. And so we sat in there for like 3 or 4 hours. A couple people came and went. And that's the one time I know I was unmasked for a long time in one place. And that might have been what did it. So,
yeah.
I mean, it could have been that. It also could have been any other thing. I mean, like the current variant is so contagious that even if you were masked, if you weren't in an N95, if you're there for 3 or 4 hours, and it could have been any other place and you're around people. Like when I got Omicron, I was masked and I was triple vaxxed, and I was like a month out of I had my booster, like my second, my first booster for like a month, right? Like, so it still should have been, you would have thought like at its apex, and I was masking everywhere. Didn't matter, you know, like you can try to like say, yes, we were going on vacation, we should have taken more precautions. I would argue like you still tested and figured this stuff out before you got on a plane, right?
Right. We were still testing all the time, and like for sure. And with me too, like the thing about me and masks is like, I mean, nobody can see me here, but I've sort of like got like a big face with a beard. Right. And when I put a mask on, I know I'm getting stuff in and stuff is going out. There's no mask I've ever found where I feel like, oh, this is a good seal.
Right.
And so it could also be that I was masked somewhere and I got it because the stuff is just moving around so fast. So I got it.
I'm getting ready for MaxStack this weekend, and I've been more like we're in the green right now as far as community spread goes. So I do let my guard down. I went to the co-op without a mask this week. In general, I've been pretty good about masking everywhere just as a precaution. We'll test before we take off tomorrow. I do have at least one good friend who is missing because he tested positive, and he is asymptomatic. Like you were saying, like you were thankful that you were symptomatic on the day you were supposed to leave. He's asymptomatic, and that's very frustrating to him.
I'm sure
he feels fine, but based on guidelines, gotta quarantine.
Well, and travel's 10 days, so we were just like, I respect that. Like Christina, to your point, like, I'm just glad I caught it before I went on 2 different planes to how many different countries,
right?
And brought it to a place whose numbers are actually pretty good. Like I'm super grateful that it was not a hard decision. I mean, we were instantly just like, this is not happening. I can imagine. Totally. I know people, or I can imagine people who would be like, well, if I'm asymptomatic, I'll just keep it quiet, because you don't have to test to get back in anymore.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like there are a lot of people who, and I'm not even necessarily going to like, some people I know who listen to this podcast will probably like want to like condemn all those people, but I'm not going to. Like I can understand if you're asymptomatic or not feeling bad, and you're also maybe not, it's not a PCR test, and you don't have to test to get out or to get in, and you're like, fuck it, I'll just, again, the same as, is any other kind of illness in the past. It's not like people wouldn't travel, when they were sick.
Right.
This is obviously different, but I'm just saying I do understand. I'm just glad that you caught it. Like to me, what would have been bad would have been like if you were not symptomatic or it was in the early things and you were on the plane, not just potentially getting people sick, but then you being sick in Kenya, sick on the airplane. Like that would have just been awful.
Well, it does seem to come so fast. I mean, my teenager was at a gathering with some friends the other night, and at about 12:30, one of them just started instantly feeling like terrible, and then she tested positive.
Yeah, that
happened so fast.
Yeah, that happened and I was concerned before. I was very concerned. I was testing before I went to Copenhagen because I had been around someone who it was the same thing. Like we were in the same space and we weren't like super close near each other, but we were definitely in the same like room and space. And she just started feeling terrible and was like, I gotta go. And she was like, cause she gives me a ride home. Sometimes she was like, I can't give you a ride today. I was like, that's fine. I was like, no, you actually like need to leave and put a mask on and like leave if you're not feeling good, but it hit her like instantly. And then she tested positive that night. And then I was freaked out because I was like, I'm supposed to get on a plane in X days. I feel totally fine. I was testing and I was okay, but it was one of those things where I was like, I don't want to infect anyone, but I also don't feel bad. So yeah, so you're right. Like I think it hits people real quick.
Definitely. And all through my trip, people coughing, sneezing, like it really feels, I mean, at least I don't know if it's like this for you all, but for me in Minneapolis, like once I got sick, right after that, we started hearing of just friend after friend, not people I had been in contact with, to be clear.
Right,
but
right.
It just seemed like there's a wave, and then you can look at the stats for your state, but they're kind of meaningless because
they are, because they're trailing indicators, right? So I mean,
right.
and we've seen now, that there is like a surge in a lot of places. So yeah, I mean, people look, this is not going away. This is never going to go away. We're going to have to find ways to like deal with it. I'm just glad that you were able to like, make, lemonade out of the situation, have a really good family trip, see Yosemite and be, like have like a great experience that way, get your points back and your money back on your trip. Cause like that would have been awful. And then, figure out travel right now is also a shit show. So you might have dodged a little bit of a bullet. Even in that regard, like it might be better, like, to replan when you can go back and visit your friend. And his farm, like when things are not as terrible, because the airports and that situation, I've never ever, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. Ugh.
Can I tell you about a sponsor?
You absolutely can.
You want to tell us about a sponsor? Is it related to being sick or trying to cure yourself from it?
I cannot. I do not have a segue for this.
Wrong sponsor. All right, go ahead.
I could do something with like feeling safe in a mask and then feeling safe at home.
Yeah, I was going to do that. That's exactly perfect.
Okay, damn. Mm-hmm. All right. So wearing a mask can make you feel safe, but sometimes you want to feel safe when you're at home. Today's episode of Overtired is brought to you by Simply Safe Home Security. Here at Overtired, we believe home should be the safest place on earth for every family. That's why we recommend Simply Safe. Simply Safe is advanced whole home security that puts you, your home, and your family's safety first. Here's why we love it. Simply Safe offers comprehensive protection not only against intruders and burglary, but against expensive home hazards from flooding to fires. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simply Safe's agents take action the moment a threat is detected, dispatching police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home. Simply Safe uses proprietary video verification technology so that monitoring agents can visually confirm the threat in order to get higher priority 911 dispatch. Monitoring plans are affordably priced at $1 a day with no long-term contract or hidden fees because feeling safe at home shouldn't break the bank. You can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/overtired. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off with interactive monitoring. Go to simplysafe.com/overtired. That's simplisafe.com/overtired. I edited this by the time people hear it, but man, that took me a couple takes. There's some real tongue twisters in there.
I was going to say lots of S's, lots of S's.
Jeff, do you want to go ahead and tell us about Text Expander while we're on a little sponsor break?
Yeah, I can do that for you. Get your team communicating faster so they can focus on what's most important. With Text Expander, your team's knowledge is at their fingertips. Get your whole team on the same page by getting information out of silos and into the hands of everyone that needs to use it. You can share your team's knowledge across departments so your team is sending a unified message to your customers and isn't spending time reinventing the wheel. Here's how it works. First, you store it. Keep your company's most used emails, phrases, messaging, URLs, and more right within the Text Expander. Right within the Text Expander.
In the Text Expander.
In the
right
Text
there,
Expander.
You know what? Put it right there in the Text Expander over there by the microwave. And then you can share it. You can get your whole team access to all the content they need to use every day. Then you expand it. Deploy the content you need with just a few keystrokes on any device across any apps you use. It's that easy. Text Expander is available on Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, iPad, Windows 95. Overtired listeners get 20% off their first year. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more about Text Expander.
Thanks, Text Expander.
Thank you so much.
So there are people out there. I'm not going to say like it's a huge number of people, but they have begun referring to the mental health corner as the MHC. Like it's their favorite part of the show, and they've given it an initialism, the MHC. So you guys ready for the MHC?
Yep.
Jeff, I feel like
I lived my whole life in the MHC.
It's been a while. Let's hear from Jeff.
Absolutely.
Let's hear from Jeff. My mental health corner, my MHC. Well, one thing is post-COVID, I've had some pretty intense brain fog, and I just can't tell for sure if I should attribute it to medication, to stress, or to long COVID. Pew, pew, pew. I don't know what we would do after we say long COVID, but anyway, and that's been it's actually been kind of intense for me. Like I've really had some moments where I don't know what it is I'm trying to think or say. And that's something I'm really struggling with. And hopefully it will get better. I mean, part of it is that like, I've been away from routine for so long. In the week prior to getting ready for Kenya, I was like, getting ready to leave the country for 2.5 weeks. And so that was just kind of a wild time. And then I got COVID, and that was just a, shut down from everything situation. And then as I sort of started recovering from COVID, we decided to do this road trip, which by the way was in the safe distance after my getting COVID. And so then I was on a road trip, and for me, like road trips, I used to be in a band that toured a lot, and I just love road trips more than anything. What I love the most, and what I loved the most about this particular trip was like, I'm down to like the real primary things. Like I am driving a van. I am a father of 2 boys who are in the back. Actually, the tallest one, who's now taller than me, is sometimes in the front. I am the husband of the woman who is usually sitting next to me in the car. And I'm the owner of that van. And that's it. That's who I am. And we're on the road, and there's no real clear rules, and there's no real big decisions to make besides where are we going to stay each night. And I love that feeling and that simplicity so, so much, that it was really hard to come home from. And when I did come home, I just have a lot waiting for me here. Whether it's work stuff or there's just house projects, there's just a million different things that were not present and didn't have to be present in that minivan driving across the country. And so coming back to it has been hard, and it has forced sort of an existential crisis in a way, which is totally my style. Like I am very quick to existential crisis. Like it's like I have the shortest path to existential crisis of anyone I know. And so when I came home, it was like, what do I what do I let back in and in what order? And how about this stuff that I don't really want to let back in, like some of these unfinished projects or whatever else, right? Like I was just it took me a minute to come back to reality and to grieve the simplicity, especially I have 2 teenage boys. So like it's so cool to be so close. Cause we're not close. They spread all over the house and they're doing their thing and God knows what. And they go to bed after me and whatever. And so like, it was really cool for the 4 of us to just be that physically close all the time. And we get along. So that worked well. So anyway, so I got back and that's what I'm kind of coming out of right now. But in the midst of that, this is just a PSA to everyone out there who takes meds without getting into how it happened. It was just a series of miscommunications, but I ended up having to go 4 days without, my sertraline, and you're not supposed to just cold stop that stuff. Like there are consequences to it.
Yeah.
And it was part of the reason it was 4 days is because I ran out on the weekend. And then there was just some really poor communication issues with my medication manager, my pharmacy, whatever. So I went like 4 days, maybe 5 days without sertraline. And it was awful. Like I got extreme nausea, at first. And then I was able to find a friend who took sertraline and I went and got one pill from him thinking that's all I needed. But then I had a couple more days. And, yesterday was the just before I actually was able to get the prescription, like, so I'd had all these waves of intense nausea. I had felt really fatigued. But man, I had some stuff happen yesterday, like some nervous twitches, like my jaw was sort of twitching. I had to go out and fix it. I have a tarp hung up in our backyard right now between our driveway and the alley. And it was blowing in a kind of a windstorm. And I was out there trying to fix it. And the experience of the pressure of the tarp blowing on me was amplified like by 100. And the sound of it was like amplified by 100. And I was just like, I really felt like I was losing my shit. And so just a warning to everybody, like, get ahead of it, because you don't want to find out what it's like. And it takes a day or so before it starts hitting. But like, man, it hit different every day after that. And it really, really scared me.
I will say
my mental health.
Like I'm on a med, Lamictal, that you're not supposed to go off of suddenly. And my personal reaction to going off it is very much like narcotic withdrawal. I get like my skin's crawling and I get nauseous and headachy. And my pharmacy, I use a small pharmacy where they know me by name. If something happens with my psychiatrist, if they fail to call in my refill on time, if any insurance problems happen, they will front me up to 4 days of Lamictal.
Oh, that's nice.
Without a valid prescription, because, I've been getting it for years now. They know that prescription will eventually come through. And that is, for me, one of the benefits. It's why I refused to. My insurance company wanted me to switch all that over to mail order. But I have benefited greatly from having a pharmacy that knows me by name, because of situations like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a similar thing when I lived in Atlanta, where it was a chain. It was Publix pharmacy, but the pharmacist, like the head pharmacist, Ray, who was just a wonderful lady, like knew me and would do the same thing, for as you, Brett, if something happened. But yeah, withdrawal is not a joke, and it can be different for every medication, and it can, depending on the half-life, but it is not a joke, and it can fuck you up. And it can take a while to come back in. So I'm really sorry you've had to go through that, because that is not fun.
Yeah, thank you. It was not fun. I've had many versions. Oh, go ahead.
I can relate to this reintegration when there are a myriad ways it could happen, but to simplify your life and to only have to focus on something as simple as, where are we going to stay tonight? And the rest of it is just take it as it comes. And then you have to reintegrate into adulting. I feel you. That is like for when it always comes back around to drugs for me. But the beauty of being addicted to drugs for me was always how simple it was. My only concern in life was the next fix. And like nothing else really mattered. I could survive, I'd get through, but nothing else mattered. And now I live a life where so many things matter, and it's hard to be an adult. And the simplicity, like going on a vacation, yeah, I get that. I hear you.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. I mean, also this thing makes me think about like, back after George Floyd was murdered, and we had a really chaotic, intense period of time here with the uprising, and then the military coming in, and my own pharmacy wasn't burned, but it was looted, as most of the pharmacies around here were, and there were like bullet holes in the glass of the drive-through thing or whatever, and I could not get my meds. I had to get it all switched out. But most of the pharmacies in the area were looted. So it was like trying to find like, I guess I can go out to the outer suburbs for my, but anyway, it makes me realize that I am a small P prepper. And it makes me think that like, I actually want to have 30 days of every bit of my medication or whatever it takes to kind of wind down from it.
Yeah.
In case something like that happens again, because the crazy thing about that period of time was like all the stuff you think wouldn't happen. Like, should you keep a tank full of gas? Why? Well, all our gas stations burned. Yeah. It's just like, it's exactly why. Anyway, it makes me think about that. And I was going to say too, that like on the withdrawal front, and this is a data point of one, but I have something to share. I learned from my medication manager. It's like, so I take this medication called Seroquel. And one of the things that it can do that's really, really hard to manage is it can cause really rapid weight gain, which it did in me. It caused me to gain about 20 pounds. I'm a big guy already, like pretty quickly. And it put me right into like pre-diabetes, mode. Right. And so, so I managed to do like a month before our trip of eating like a very limited diet, that brought it back down. And now I have to like try to figure out how to keep myself where I'm at, not because of anything, not even any body image, nothing like that. Just like It put me into pre-diabetes, and I have diabetes in the family, and I just didn't want to go all the way if I can avoid it. So I started pulling back on how much Seroquel I would take during the day and at night. No. And that actually started
without
to have its
guidance
own.
without psychiatric.
No,
Jack,
I was under the impression I had a range I could work in, because even my prescription was like 1 to 2 morning.
Sometimes that's true. Sometimes, but you have to be explicitly told that.
And I talked to so what confused me was that my bottle actually said 1 to 2 morning, afternoon, and night.
Really?
Right. So I was, and so I started.
How many are these 100 milligram tablets?
Well, hold on. Let's go ahead and rattle the can here. I forget, and I'm going away now. Oh, they're 50. They're 50.
50. Okay. That's a pretty 1 to 2. That's pretty severe.
I know. So anyway, I mean, yes, all of what you're saying is right. Like that's exactly the problem, right? Is that I misunderstood it as something I could just do. And that had its own, serious issues. So just to everybody out there, like don't mess with it. And keep it moving.
Make sure and talk to your medication manager, and like make sure that they don't put shit like that on the the bottle without you understanding why it says that. Like maybe they're doing that because they want to get you extras, right? Which is fine.
Right.
Or maybe they like if you're because certain sensitive medications, I've had to do this where like I've had to literally cut the pills to a certain extent because the amount that if it's like a tablet, because the available prescribed amounts don't fit what is needed for me. So I have to have a pill cutter and cut it all the time. So, but like, you need to understand that So that didn't help with your withdrawal or any of the other stuff. If you've been messing around with how much you were taking, trying to mitigate the weight gain.
That was more like a month or so ago. And it was really bad. And I mean, and just to say, one of the things my medication manager said to me about, I was just asking, like, I have so many friends that are now starting to take medication. What do you think it is? Is it cultural that it's more acceptable? Is it whatever? And she said, like, in some cases, your body just may have been producing something that was helping you manage a certain aspect of your mental health that it stopped producing. And so to all the people out there like me, because I didn't start taking any medications until just the beginning of the pandemic by coincidence, thankfully. So I'm still learning. I'm learning all this stuff, right? Like I'm still kind of just a baby when it comes to dealing with medications. And like you both responded so quickly to the thing about Seroquel pulling back. Whereas for me, it was just kind of like, oh, let's give it a try, right? So hopefully this is one way in which Mental Health Corner is helpful to people.
No, I think you're right, because people don't know. And I think, I don't know. I'm also thinking, I don't know if it's that bodies aren't producing it, or that maybe like it's called more cultural thing. I think it's a personal awareness thing. I think like when it's kind of like when you are looking for a red car, or you get something new, like you see it everywhere. Like there's a term for that, for that phenomenon. But I have a feeling some of it is that, where you're just much more aware of it because it's new to you and it's top of your mind. So you notice and pick up on every conversation you have with anyone who is new to taking medication. But you're right. I think, but I think this can be really helpful. You're right, for people. Like if you're new to this stuff, don't fuck with your meds, especially your psychiatric meds, at all without talking to a doctor. It will lead to bad things.
Like they absolutely will. They will need adjustment. They always need adjustment, but you have to do it. You have to do it with guidance. Like there are people that you're paying to help you make these decisions. And I don't care how knowledgeable you think you are. You need to follow someone with at least, what is an RN? Is that what do you need to be an RN?
Well, an RN, I think I would want like a physician's assistant more than I would trust an RN, to be honest with you. But yeah.
Sure. But you want someone with at least some schooling.
Yes.
In the field, which you can't get just by reading the DSM.
No, you can't. And that's the thing too. Like you really need people who've like seen stuff and can see how things can act. And also to be clear, not every doctor medication manager is going to get everything right. That doesn't mean that you don't still seek out other people. You know what I mean? Like just because they're a dumbass doesn't mean that you give up on the whole thing and think, oh, I know best and I can adjust myself. No, you really can't. Like it's
the thing that gets really fucked up is interactions. And like for me with bipolar and ADHD, like I take 4 different meds in addition to stuff for like blood pressure and cholesterol. I take 4 different psychotropics. I take 4 different meds for my mental health, and the balance between them, I don't care whether you have 7 years of schooling or 2, nobody knows every possible interaction or how a tweak to one med will affect the combination with another med, because everyone's unique. And you even if they make mistakes though, you're working with someone who at least can account for the mistake and figure out how to correct it. Because blind guessing is not going to do it for you.
No, it's not. And people who think they can be like lay pharmaceutical, geniuses themselves, which I know wasn't what you thought, Jeff, but some people I know really do think, oh, I can do this myself. No, you really can't. Like, and it's one of those things that I think, especially as intelligent people, it's like Dunning-Kruger, like we assume that we can do more than we really can, because in many cases we have. And no, with medication stuff, like I've just learned, and I unfortunately learned it at a very young age, but, some of the stuff that like you're learning now, like minor adjustments can make a massive impact on your life. Withdrawal can come on really quick. I mean, like it's possible that when you were adjusting your stuff, that like if your body got used to a certain amount, that even dripping down to that smaller a dose was kicking off certain withdrawal symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Like it depends on what the medication is, but some of them are that sensitive, which means that if you're doing those weird amounts, you have to figure out like how to, balance the right things so that you get consistent. But it's just, it takes time and it's complicated, but you need to work with your doctor or medication manager or whatever on that stuff. And I'm really sorry you've been going through that, because like nothing to me is worse about like, to me, it's honestly in many ways worse than the depression, like worse than the diseases themselves is sometimes the process of having to manage, like finding the right medication and going through that testing and going through the withdrawal period and going through all that stuff is sometimes as debilitating as like what you're trying to treat. Like obviously it's not, what you're trying to treat, I think is worse and could have like longer term consequences, but I don't want to ever pretend like that process of finding a solution can't be equally arduous and really difficult.
The tax you pay, right? It's
the
mental health tax is all the medication futzing that you have to do.
Yep. Which a lot of people don't want to do. I think this is why a lot of people say medication doesn't work for me. And my response to that is usually, okay, how many have you tried? And how much, right, honestly, and how long have you gone through this?
Effort yet?
Yeah, right. And the thing is, it's shitty. It sucks to have to go through the effort. It sucks to have to pay that tax because we didn't ask for any of this. We didn't do anything wrong. It's not a choice that we made. But it's the same with anybody who has it's somebody who's diabetic, somebody who has, some other sort of, condition. Like it's shitty. Like it's unfair. But it is, but you're right. It's the tax you pay so that you don't kill yourself or hurt someone else, and that is ultimately worth it. But the process of getting there can be very, very difficult and really, frustrating. And you have to kind of, unfortunately, go through it. And I'm glad you have like a supportive family and, situation where you can go through those things. Like the only thing I'm grateful for, my experiences is that I was, like between 14 and 17 when I went through most of my like testing of stuff. So, I mean, it fucked up my life then, but, I was at the time it seemed like all consequential. Now I'm like, God, if I had to do this while I'm trying to work a high profile corporate job and doing other things, like I don't know what I would do, right? Like if it got bad enough, it would be one of those things where I would have to take like disability time and go on leave. You know what I mean? Like because I don't know how you deal with it otherwise. If things get really bad when you're trying to figure out like what medications are right and tweaking things and getting all that stuff together. So I'm glad that you have support and hopefully don't feel like the weight of everything is on your shoulders and that you can take the time to know it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be shitty and take time to figure out, but it'll be okay.
But it's worth it. Like
it is worth it. That's the thing.
We're glossing over that part. Like when you do when you make it through the gauntlet, then your life can be multiple times better. With medication. Like it's worth the effort.
It is
to find the right med at the right dose.
No, I totally agree. No, and I say this, and I mean this absolutely sincerely. And I'm not trying to, trigger anybody or whatever. But like, I would not be alive without medication. There's no doubt in my mind. I would not be alive. So for me, it is one of those things where I'm like, all the other stuff, as bad as it is still better than the alternative, which is not being able to get out of bed and function as a human being and literally like praying for death. Like it is,
Yeah. Glad you're here too. Glad for medication.
Yeah. Do you want to take the next mental health corner, Christina?
Sure. No, but I'm good. On that happy note, no, I'm okay. I don't really have much to add. I've just been doing some work stuff. Had some gastrointestinal stuff this morning, which is not fun. I hate dealing with that. Yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I have some friends who are in from out of town this week. Amazon AWS is having some sort of internal thing, and so like it seems like every person I know now works at AWS and developer relations. So I've been able to see people, which is cool. So I'm in a good place.
What's funny about that is Victor and I work at Oracle, yet they're launching an AWS HeatWave on AWS where you can use an Oracle database with like it's a whole thing. Victor knows more about it than I do, but we've been dealing with AWS and AWS people nonstop too. But anyway, okay. I'm kind of the same. I was doing well. I got up at 3 a.m. today because it was one of those nights where I fell asleep thinking about a problem and I solved it in the dream I had between 9 a.m. and 1 a.m. And then I woke up at 1 a.m. and I laid in bed for 2 hours thinking about the solution that I had come up with. And then at 3, I gave up and decided just to code it out. And it worked.
Nice.
It was great. It worked.
Awesome.
If Twitter hadn't changed their API since the last time I futzed with it, it would be a perfect solution, but they did. But anyway, like, I don't think I'm manic right now. I think I have insomnia and maybe a little bit of obsession.
Sure.
But I don't have like the elevated mood. I don't have the like, I'm pretty fucking laid back right now.
Awesome. I'm sorry about the API. I think there's somebody who maintains like a more up-to-date kind of Python thing that is easy to go for. Sorry, go on.
They moved it to V2.
Yep.
And I haven't played with it for at least a year now, maybe more. So the apps that I had created for the V1 API still function. Mm-hmm. And as long as I use the API keys from those original apps, my little integration, I made it so that Doing can import your tweets as Doing entries. And as long as you have a V1 API app made, it works great. But the Ruby gem that interfaces with the Twitter API is only for V1, and you can no longer create a V1 app. You have to create a project and an app now, and it has to use V2 endpoints. So I have to find a new gem if I'm going to make this work. But so the thing I figured out, and I'll make this brief because no one gives a fuck. I figured out how to make plugins for Doing gem based. So you can develop a Doing plugin as a gem and publish it, and then people can install the plugin just by typing gem install Doing plugin Twitter import.
That's awesome.
And it installs it, and it'll pick up any gem on your system that starts with Doing -plugin- will be loaded as a plugin and Doing. So it makes plugins distributable. To this date, nobody has ever written a Doing plugin aside from me, and I don't see it being a big community effort. But at least now I know how to do it. I figured out a way to make that work.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, can I ask you guys? I'm getting ready to travel for the first time in a while. We'll say a couple of years. And I'm just going to Chicago, which is like a 6-hour drive for me. Not a big deal, but I've forgotten how to pack. Do you guys have any tips for like managing a packing list? How do you put together your packing list? How do you double check? How do you know you got all your shit together before you leave?
Yes.
Yeah. Jeff, you want to take this one?
Yeah. Okay. I got 3 things I want to say right away. Okay. So in terms of the packing itself, I always designate a table or a space for where I'm going to throw everything as I'm getting ready to pack. And that might be just the morning that I'm packing, or it might be a few days before. So it's like, if I know I want my sunglasses, the sunglasses go on that table. We actually have like a folding table I set up. It's like how my dad used to plan packing or camping trips. And if there's some, like there's a hat I want to bring, I put it there. If there's like a medication I want to make sure I have, I put it there. Like I just make this ugly ass pile of stuff that ends up being, for me, a lot easier than a packing list. So like my first round is just to walk around the house and be like that, and throw it on the table. Then I make my packing list. And the way it works after that is if it's on the table, I can cross it off the packing list. On or under the table. So I might put like a suitcase under the table, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I make my packing list. And I always make my packing lists on like index cards or on a half piece of paper or whatever, so that I can just carry it around with me. I've tried doing templates. I've used like task paper format or whatever, but that didn't work for me. So that's the packing recommendation. Okay. Just pile it all up and then figure it out. My second thing is frickin' packing cubes for your suitcase.
Yep.
The cubes that you do you use those, Christina?
I do. Yeah. I was like, for a long time, I was like against them. I was like, this is stupid. No, it is not. It is the way that I make stuff work, honestly.
It's incredible. And like get enough so that one can be just for dirty clothes. And so like my family just went on a trip and we borrowed packing cubes from a bunch of friends. So each person had a different color packing cube and we all packed into one suitcase. And if you wanted your stuff, you just grabbed the one that had your shirts in it or the one that had your shorts in it or whatever. I, like you, Christina, I was just like, I don't know about all this, but it has changed the way I travel, especially with multiple people. But even if I was alone, I would use them. The third thing is just to bring an extension cord. That's all. Always bring an extension cord.
What kind of extension cord? 2-prong, 3-prong, lightning cable, USB-C? What are we talking about here?
I do a 3-prong with a couple of 3-prong outlets in it and a couple of USB outlets in it. So, the kind you can just grab off a Target shelf or something.
Yeah. I have some good options for that.
Yeah, I made my mistake when I went to Europe that I didn't even realize this because it had been so long since I traveled that I couldn't find my converter kits for my foreign stuff. So I had to buy something in the airport. And then I did actually have one that I could use. So I had 2 different plug things. But what I found, I have this thing. The audience won't be able to see it, but I'll show you too. It's great. It is from it's from Hyper, and it is a USB plug. So it's great. So on the back of it, it has like a 2-prong plug, but you can obviously attach any sort of converter to it, which I did. On the front of it, it also has a 2-prong plug that'll take up to 1500 watts. So you can plug in, pass through other stuff into it, including another one of these. And then on the front, it goes up to 100 watts. It has 3 USB-C 100-watt ports. It'll do a total of 100 watts. And then one 18-watt USB-A. So with this, I can basically have my iPad, my phone, my laptop all fully charged, and it has a pass through for anything else I need to plug in. So with this and a power converter, like a just like a universal kind of plug thing, this is really good for me. This is better than the Belkin one that I used to use for travel because it's got enough wattage for all the like I can do a 16-inch MacBook fully charged off of this thing.
Can you drop a link to that in the show notes?
I sure can. It's really good. I've got 2 of these. It was a Kickstarter, but they sell them like officially on their store now. It's really, really good. Something like this. And I would also say, like having cables. I tend to keep my advice. My advice is basically very similar to Jeff's, but I would also say if you're traveling more frequently, like I try to keep my laptop bag. There are some changes and I get fucked up here sometimes because I knew that I had a cable in the bag and then I don't, but I try to keep like my tech bag kind of filled at all times. So I'll have stuff that I use just in the travel bag, right? So I buy extras. So I have a lightning to USB-C cable. I have, a 2.5 millimeter, audio jack cable, just as something. I have, again, like a charger, like one of these things from Hyper that I just have in the bag. Some other stuff like my travel adapters, and I try to keep those things always there so that when I'm doing my tech stuff, which is a lot of times for me even a bigger deal than like the clothes or other stuff. Well, no, because clothes are a big deal, but you can always buy clothes. You can't always buy the tech stuff. So if I have that organized, then I know that I just basically have to grab my bag. Like I know that I have that. And then for me, I also make sure like I keep my pills in, it's funny. I use an Air France, amenity kit, bag that I got. The honestly, like from flying business class so much over the last few years, I have all these amenity kit bags, which are great for storing medication bottles and things like that, and also like adopt kits. So like I have like these Toomey bags that are basically all my toiletries, and that's the same thing. I have toiletry kits that are not my day in and day out toiletries, but just my stuff for traveling. Yeah. If you're not traveling all the time, you don't need to do that. But I would say similar to the packing cubes, having whether it is, a clear, gallon bag that you have to use for TSA if you don't have pre-check. And I forgot about this because that in Europe, they don't have pre-check. And so I forgot that I had to put everything in a plastic bag and held up, security. I mean, it was not very busy, but in Copenhagen, and the people were very nice to me when I had to send my things through 4 times like a freaking novice. And I felt so bad. They were so kind to me. And I was like, I am so sorry. I did not realize that I had all this stuff in there, including a phone that I totally forgot about. Like it was a lot, but yeah, but having like bags set up for your toiletries, your meds and that stuff, works. But yeah, packing cubes are amazing. And then, yeah, just kind of, I always do like the broad city, like, phone, wallet, keys. And then I add on like my denim, like pills kind of mantra, like before I'm leaving a place. Also, when you're like leaving the hotel room, checking for everything. Do I have my phone? Do I have my wallet? Do I have my keys? Do I have my medication? Because those are the important things. Anything else you can, replace.
The one tip I would add, I have a tech go bag. Do you guys know what a cocoon backpack is?
Yes.
Like it has a whole panel of just like elastic straps, and you can just kind of like
like a
stick
tactical
cables and stuff.
backpack.
Yeah. And I have that rigged up with every possible adapter from this to that, including like an Ethernet cable for hotels where I can have a hardwired connection, USB dongles, USB-C, USB-A to, everything. And I don't use those cables at home, and that bag is basically always ready to go. So anytime I'm going on a trip that's going to involve tech at all, like if I was going to Yellowstone, I probably wouldn't bring the bag. But for anything that involves tech, it's my go bag. It's everything else that I'm finding overwhelming.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, wow. Are you driving?
Yeah.
House purse. That's the other thing. I converted the house purse into a car purse, and it was amazing because I brought it in and it would be by my bedside at each hotel. Nice. It was incredible.
Nice. Man, we didn't get through half our list today. We spent a long time on mental health, and I'm okay with that.
No, I think it was good. It was also great to hear like a Jeff update, and I think this was like a really solid episode, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so
I think we're gonna save the other stuff for when you come back from MacStock. I think Jeff and I are gonna do like a solo show, probably this next one. So that Jeff, so that Brett rather, a birthday boy, can enjoy his vacay and enjoy all of his people at MacStock.
Oh yeah, it was my birthday on Wednesday.
Yes, it was
birthday.
Tuesday. What day is today?
Yeah. Today is Thursday.
It was Tuesday was my birthday.
Happy belated birthday! And now who knows when it was when you're listening to this podcast? But happy birthday to Mr. Terpstra.
How old are you, Christina? 29? Is that what it was?
Yep.
I just turned 29 as well.
That's awesome. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
It's a great age.
29 come 44.
Mm-hmm.
I think I keep having to do the math. I've lost track over the last few years.
Look, you're just turning 29 for the 15th time. It's not a big deal.
Yep. You're doing great.
16th time, whatever. Like, yeah, math is hard.
Arithmetic.
Gratitude lightning round.
Oh, Jesus. How did I forget about gratitude? Yes. Okay. Jeff, go.
I am grafting Note Plan, which is an app that I've kind of made an attempt to integrate into my life 3 or 4 times since its inception. And I'm doing it again right now. Note Plan is, text document based, notes organizer, but really that's not why I use it. 'Cause I have other things I use for that. See Brett Terpstra. But what it does is it puts sort of an interface in front of you that has a little bit of here's your picture. You open up the app and you have a little mini calendar in the right hand side. Below that in a column, you have your events over the next few days, right? And then you have kind of basically a text editor in the middle. And what it allows me to do that I like so much is I can look at that calendar and just very quickly click on an item and make notes for that item, for that meeting that's coming up, for that, that deadline I have or whatever. And it's just, it's built, it's one of these apps that, if this sounds interesting to you, just go look because it's built in features over the years really consistently and really wonderful features. And so I use it mostly just to keep sort of a one note for the week and a note for each day, that I can create in advance. And it just allows me to kind of, anchor certain key tasks or things I need to think about, and I can just let them go. And for me, I really like that more than I like doing it inside of like an OmniFocus or something. But, none of these solutions is perfect, but it's just wonderfully designed. There's a wonderful templating system inside of it that you can use. And the coolest thing for me is what makes me able to play with this and then put it down is that, like all good apps of this type, it's just looking for a folder that has your text documents in it. And that's sort of my primary requirement for anything like this is like, can I just turn you on and show you my text documents and start using you with the stuff I've already got and not have to create a new system or anything like that? And that's what NotePlan allows me to do. It's also on Setapp, just to be clear about that. Brett, what were you going to say?
Interesting side note, because I knew you had to go, Jeff, but Eduardo from NotePlan and we both use Sendy for marketing emails. Mm-hmm. So if you ever get a marketing email from NotePlan, he gave me the template and I designed the script that turns a markdown file into that email with his formatting. Nice. So emails from Marked share the same formatting as emails from NotePlan. And he designed them. I scripted it, and it's synergy, developer synergy.
Is it Eduardo Brett production?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Eduardo's just done really an incredible job with this app because I do once a year go, I think this is what I need. And I dive in. And what's amazing is that every time I dive in, what I did before is still basically there. And that's how I use tools. I dip in and out of them all the time. So anyway, it's just a wonderfully designed app. Check it out. And that's it. Who's next?
All right. Go ahead, Christina.
Okay. I don't think I've mentioned this one before. Have I talked about Jifski before?
No.
You know what? I don't remember.
Okay. Then I'm going to talk about it. If I've somehow talked about this before, I apologize. Jifski or Gifski, however you want to say it, is a great app. So it's two things. It's both there's a CLI that's kind of like a front end, and there's also a Mac app that Cinderhouse, and I know that I said his name wrong, created for Sindra Sorhus. Anyway, he's a prolific open source contributor who makes a lot of really great Mac apps and also created like the awesome list stuff and whatnot. He makes a lot of really good utilities and a lot of free open source stuff. Some of his things are paid, but most of them are free. But this is basically a GIF a GIF converter, so it'll convert videos to GIFs animations, but it focuses on quality, so you can have really high quality, so I've had to do this recently where I've had to make GIFs of like screen recordings and stuff so that we can share screen recording videos that I've made like on social media. And most of the GIF like conversion tools are terrible, to be completely honest. They compress things way down. They don't look good, and they're not worth a damn.
Yes.
Gifski, which is free, is great. It's a high quality GIF encoder. So like the file sizes will be large. You can actually then limit the number of frames, and you can also limit how big the image is if you need to get it down. And I found that actually will get you a long way. But the quality is incredible. And the Mac app and the CLI version basically has to be run, from the command line, and you can pass in, like your frames per second and your width and the name colors that you want. You could do all of that, exactly, maximum number of colors, and it uses FFmpeg and it can do that stuff. But the Mac app is incredible because it's super easy for you to just drag in a video file and then make adjustments. It'll give you kind of an idea of how big the resulting file will be. The resulting file is actually usually a little bit smaller, which is good to know. And the results are just top notch. Like I haven't found anything even remotely close, and I've used basically everything else you could use. So this is from the Image Optim guy. So it's really, really great. And if you have to deal with the GIFs or GIFs at all and converting them, like in the old days, we actually had a guy at Gizmodo, Andrew Lazuski, who's amazing, who would make us the best like GIFs that I've ever seen, where what he would do is he would take footage from the video, he would import all the frames into Photoshop, and then he would export them out. Like he would do the editing and export them out. and Andrew has a setup so he can do it really quickly. But if you don't have an Andrew on your team who can do that for you, then this is going to be the closest thing you can possibly get. And it's free, and it's also open source. So really good stuff.
So two things. First of all, it's amazing that you've given up on the fight and you just say both GIF and GIF every time. You're like GIF or GIF, GIF or GIF.
Yep, same.
Second, I use GIFski on the command line in combination with GIFsicle. And the two together, I've come up with a pretty good GIF workflow, even though for like websites, I'm using looping MP4 video now, but for social media,
you have to.
I'm excited to try this GUI. This looks really cool. The
GUI is great. Yeah, the GUI is great. And the reason I like it is because it'll give you the preview of the size, because certain social media sites like LinkedIn will like be really particular. Like they need a GIF, but it can only be up to 8 megabytes.
Yeah.
And then some like Twitter will be fine with the file size, but if the resolution is too big, then it won't work.
Yeah.
I didn't know these things until the social media team was like, I need you to convert this to a smaller size or a different size. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And thankfully I was using a tool that like let me hone in on all those details.
Nice. Awesome.
All right. My pick will be quick. I just discovered it. It was one of those that came up when I updated Brew. I always look through, it tells you like what the new formulae and I go through them and I do a brew home on all of them. And I found this one called Astrofox in the casks, brew cask. And it is an open source, free to use application that you can drop in an audio file, for example, a podcast, and it will do background images, titles, and waveform animations, and output an MP4 for you to upload to YouTube. I'm excited because we've never agreed to record our actual faces while we're talking on this podcast. And I have always been hesitant to just publish a video that was just a static image, and then have our audio over it. But I do want to be on YouTube, and this gives me an animated, visually interesting video from our little conversations here. So I am very impressed with Astrofox, especially because it's free. And I'll link that in the show notes. That's it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I'm going to definitely check that out. That's great that well done checking out the homebrew formula, new formula things, because I'd never heard of this. And this is like a perfect solution for what we've done, and also might be useful in some of my other endeavors. So this is cool.
But did you pick it based on name alone?
No.
When you update, do you get like descriptions as well?
No. When I update, I get names. So yeah. There's a lot of stuff like FLOC. I know what it does. I don't need to. But if it's a weird name that sounds somewhat interesting, the other one I found was Tuck, TUC, which is a variation of the Unix cut CLI. But it does basically stuff that you would have to do some extensive sed and awk magic to do. It basically uses cut syntax to say cut the second and fourth column, transpose them, and split them with this delimiter. It's very intuitive. I'll link that one as well.
This is the one. It's like it's a node module, right? Am I looking at the right thing?
I think it's a Go. I don't remember what it's written.
Anyway,
but
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I would like to thank a special guest today, which is my youngest son, who's been making pesto in the kitchen outside my door. So if you've heard a lot of kitchen noises, I do not have the heart to tell him to stop because he's making pesto.
Hell yeah.
So that's it. But
I didn't hear it.
I didn't either. I didn't hear any of it. So
I delighted.
So A, great soundproofing, and B, you got to like hear and smell the pesto making, and now you get to enjoy pesto. So that's awesome.
It's awesome. Before I get some sleep.
Yes.
Get some sleep.
Speaking of, get some sleep, guys.
Get some sleep. Good night, John Boy.
Good night, Pony Boy.